And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the prosecution is not going to get that man today. No, because I'm going to get him.
This is the Hagmann Report for today. It's Friday, March 15th, 2013. I'm Doug Hagmann. With me in studio is my co-host, Joe Hagmann. He's my son, investigator extraordinaire. And together we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Folks, you're about to hear 3 hours of unbiased news, information, analysis, uncensored information that you need to know in these perilous times. For those new to the program, we broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find us on the internet, of course, our home base, HomelandSecurityUS.com. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Thank you for your belief and your trust in us as we walk through this whatever this is, this minefield of current events together. Want to thank you for helping keep us on the air, keep us viable, keep us talking, and providing truth to the public. Joe, it's good to see you in studio today.
Yeah, we had an interesting day. Got to sit down and eat dinner with you, which is a chance we only get to have once a few times a year, it seems, only on the holidays.
Wow, yeah.
Special events, but we did have a regular dinner. Went out tonight. It was great.
Yeah, actually, kind of a working dinner, but nonetheless, it was a dinner. It was nice. It was good.
Yeah. And for those of you hungry who want to know, we had this excellent beer battered fish from a nice restaurant I've never been to here locally, and it was excellent.
Yeah, it was very good. The company was good. The discussions were good. Folks, we've got a great program for you tonight. I want to just let you know that for the first half hour, we're going to be touching on some important news stories, kind of recapping a few things, and then at 8:30, we're going to be introducing you to a Gold Star mother, the mother of a fallen Marine. Her name is Susan Price, and she's going to tell a story. She's going to give us an account of what's going on, what happened with her son, and I just want to say that, and I'll talk more about this when the time comes, but basically what she's going to tell us is a microcosm of what is taking place here with us all. So it's all relevant to us. Got to stay tuned. Got to stay with us to hear what Miss Price has to say.
It will be very interesting. Yeah, we went. Yeah. Her son was a Marine, among other things, serving his country, and was fatally wounded in Afghanistan. And her story is very compelling, and you're not going to want to miss it, as there are still open questions as to what can be done, if anything, for this woman and her family.
Oh, there's a lot that can be done. I got to tell you, she's a Spitfire. She is really wanting the truth and seeking the truth. And it's terrible in this country when we can't even have a conversation. When just by virtue of asking for the truth, aside from not getting it, you are actually being marginalized. You are. No, I didn't say that. I'm sorry. I just got a little notice here.
Yeah.
No, you know what? It's sad when you are in a situation as we are in our country today, where just by merely asking questions, you become the enemy. By merely asking a question, whether it's about the legitimate question surrounding Obama's eligibility or something else, all we want's the truth.
Right. And the truth is nonpartisan, or at least the lack of truth is nonpartisan. It stretches beyond political lines, as each camp refuses to tell the truth about what they do and demanding as much from the other side, but by their own examples. From the Bush era and the torture and the Patriot Act and the secrecy behind the drone program to the Obama administration's doubling down to the anti-transparency agenda. The truth is hard to find in politics. And the only place you're going to really find it is on broadcasters, journalists, and people inside the government that have no other agenda than just wanting to help people, which is really what their oath and duty of office is, especially for the elected representatives. And journalists, on the other hand, a lot of people put everything at stake to get the truth out there. And sometimes we see it end in tragedy. Other times we see it end, with little things getting done and things getting leaked and information getting out there. And that's what we're trying to do, is just get information out there. And not only that, put it together and understand it in a way as to where we are as a nation, how far we are hanging off that cliff, and, how long until we fall off that cliff, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to say something to Linda. Linda, thanks for writing in. Hopefully hopefully your son's patched up and doing well. One of our listeners, her son actually fell today and cut his head, and he's got some staples. And just wanted to give you a shout out. Hang in there, kiddo. You're going to be doing just fine, as is your son.
Yeah, we have. There's a Dredge says the war drums beating, as that headline or series of words often makes its way to the front of these news sites. The beating of war drums. North Korea, again, in the news, as it is firing test missiles into the Sea of Japan, as the U.S. is deploying a ground-based missile interception system just for North Korea and the threat that they potentially pose. The U.S. is deploying 14 new ground-based missile interceptors in Alaska to counter renewed nuclear threats from North Korea and Iran, Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel said Friday. The new interceptors will be based at Fort Greely, an Army launch site about 100 miles south of Fairbanks, Alaska, and are projected to be fully deployed by 2017, Hagel said. The additions will bring the U.S.-based ground interceptor deployment from 30 to 44, including 4 that are based in California. But reading between the lines here, we have South Korea, which is firing off missiles in defiance of the U.S.'s uptick in missile interceptors in the western part of the country. As controversial move comes in response to recent aggression from the North Korean tyrant dictator Kim Jong-un. This from the Sun, UK.
Well, I just want to say this, and I think it's important for everyone to understand right now we are heading headlong into a third world war. A third world war that has been planned, a third world war that has been orchestrated, and the end game, the final arrangement of the chess pieces for World War III is on schedule. This regime by Obama, by the very people around him, by the Muslim Brotherhood, by the other actors, other actor countries. We're about to see World War III start. And it's going to start in Syria. It's going to start in Syria, or that's at least where the core of the war is going to be. Syria is going to explode. It's not going to implode, for example, like Libya. It's not going to implode like Egypt. It's going to explode. It's going to come outward, and of course, other countries will become quickly involved. And this is really something that we have to keep our eyes on. And we can trace this back more recently to September 11th, 2012, with respect to Benghazi. That provided us a window as to what the Third World War, how it was going to play out. We are running guns and such, and all over the world. We are playing playing a very dangerous game, and it's not really a game. It's actually a set of blueprints that were made many, many, many years ago, a generation or more ago. Generations ago, perhaps. And what that is going to do, we are close right now to that flashpoint, to that fuse being lit, to the fact that we are going to be engaged, elsewhere engaged. And I don't remember, and I could be wrong, but I don't remember any of our elected representatives asking whether it's okay with us if we do this, if we engage in a yet another war. Apparently, it's not up to us. Not apparently. It is not up to us. It's up to the very people, the architects who are planning this. And part of tonight's guest is going to, well, you're going to see how this all plays a part and it all kind of ties together. But, if I can't help but shake. And earlier today, I was talking to a gentleman about this. Olympus Has Fallen, the movie that's coming out when?
Yeah.
March 22nd.
I was talking with somebody about this, and there is a code name.
Code name?
I think it, and let me see if they're in the chat room. Yeah, Olympus is a code name for, if I'm not mistaken, the United States in this Obama trip to Israel. Or maybe Obama's code name. I'm not sure.
No, it's not Obama's code name. It's just the code name, I think, for the White House or for the United States, or this for the seat of government. But
in the movie Olympus Has Fallen. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's coming out on March 22nd, 3/22. Which, if you're into or if you're aware of the significance of numerology, by the occultists, by the people who run the world, by the couple of families that really have the capital, and I mean capital, both political and the dollar capital, real capital to fund the wars. You can understand that this is a global game, or a game of global dominance, or game for global dominance. This is where we're at, and I think that, for example, I think it's pretty important, whether you think so or not, or whether I think so or not. It doesn't matter. It matters what the people in power, what they think, and I think they're telegraphing something that on a meaningful date, a date meaningful to them, 3/22, Olympus Has Fallen. I think that they are telegraphing to us that their plans are about to come to fruition.
I heard Glenn Beck today in my. I was doing a lot of running around today. Excuse me, and I heard him talking about this, about the gun situation, about Dianne Feinstein and the Ted Cruz going at it, and her lack of care, and the overall elected representatives' lack of care of the Constitution. And he said something that we have alluded to repeatedly. And he said that nothing can really take the guns out of the hands of the American people without a major catalyst or a major event that would capsulize all of America, and sort of like a 9/11 type event, an event changing from coast to coast, would change the sentiment and the beliefs of the American people.
Well, as it was explained to me, and I could be getting this wrong or incorrect, but just bear with me on this. I mentioned, I think it was yesterday, about being in a boot camp. Imagine everyone imagine your community, your city, your town, your state, you being a part of a boot camp. And the boot camp might represent your city, town, state, whatever. And when you're in boot camp, the first order of business when one is sent to boot camp is to take away their individuality, and part of the process as well, and get everyone thinking alike. And part of the process too is, for example, if one person is a screw off or screws up or does something that's against the rules, well, the entire camp, the entire boot camp, they suffer.
Yeah, it's like a football team. In a way,
everyone takes a lap. Just because of one person. Imagine the demonization of gun ownership, to the extent where, if you own a gun, you're going to be ostracized, and in fact, the punishment of others around you, because somebody's still holding out weapons. So you've got people, whether they're neighbors, they're friends, their family, who knows? They don't want to go through this boot camp, if you will, the punishment in boot camp. So you're going to end up, they're going to say, hey, Hey, Doug or Joe, they've got weapons, or Kathy or Ray, they've got weapons. Who knows? They've got. In fact, not only do they have weapons, they've got a stockpile of ammunition and food at their house. Oh, shame on them. So, so now because of that, everyone is going to be made to suffer, and they're going to go after the holdouts. So the people that say, well, for my cold dead hands, that will be a literal statement, because
Yeah.
otherwise. I mean, really, okay, it's
Right.
one thing to have keyboard bravado, keyboard muscles, but then again, when it really comes down to it, people are thinking too symmetrically. It's asymmetrical warfare that is about to be that we're about to experience. It is
Yeah.
no single point failure for the people coming after us.
Yeah. And I look at it as a two-dimensional war. We're going to have a physical war, and we're going to have a spiritual war. And as hard as it is to believe for some people, the spiritual war is going to be much more important. It's going to be the key to victory. It's going to be the key to your physical battles. As without that spiritual element, we will be lost and blind and left with our own human decisions, our own human emotions, and we know how the blind can lead the blind, and this is what we'll see a lot of, sadly.
However, God does not want us to be wimps. We have to hold our ground. We have to play our position until the very final moment, until the final time. I think this is what we have to do. It's that simple.
To survive.
Exactly. So, there's just a lot of stuff going on with respect to this kind of the gun grab is just one element. There's the financial side. There's the racial and the economic side of the racial, and then of course there's the societal component, the haves versus the have-nots. I've got mine. Too bad for you. You don't have yours. It's going to get very ugly here, and people don't understand that. People are not expecting how ugly it's going to get.
I sent you an article on your Skype. I don't know if you have it. An economy of peak food stamp usage, peak Dow, and peak debt.
Now, how much sense does that make, folks? Seriously, How much sense does it make to have the Dow up so high, and the unemployment numbers high, the zero
The inflation rates number high, interest rates low, food stamp usage dependency, whether it's medical, disability, Social Security, or food stamp usage, all at all-time highs. At the same time, the Dow is at all-time highs.
Right, and you've got metals that are being purposely held down, the prices of metals, but you're going to see that corrected.
While other commodities and are trading at all-time highs too. We have gas, not at the price of barrel level, but at the pump level, very high. We have the price of milk high. We see the price of food rising high. What we don't see with that is the value of our dollar going with those price raises, so it's worth more. We don't see the wages going up, so you can adjust, and that's especially for people with on fixed income. Social Security, people who depend on that, who paid into it all their lives, who are now retiring, are seeing their buying and purchasing power crippling them to where they're deciding between food or medicine in some cases. And Obamacare isn't helping any, and this is what we're going to continue to see more of until the people are so crippled, are so in a state, as you said, will you go to a camp or turn in your possessions or choose to live another life under government supervision for those simple protections like food?
Yeah, and you see, meantime, you've got the elite of the elite. They're building their own fortresses, their shelters underground. Ask yourself, why are all these shelters being built underground? And you might think, well, what are you talking about? Well, of course, there's cities, underground cities, apartments. Literal cities that are being built underground. Now, in really, how much sense does that make? Having the American people, us subjects up here above ground, if these people are so worried about their continuing survival, then by extension that means they're not too awful concerned about us. You see, we're just the worker bees, worker ants in the scheme of things. So this is how we have to look at it. And we're seeing now, just as Steve had eloquently talked about, a confluence of events or a convergence of flashpoints, and converging flashpoints. This is what we're seeing. We're seeing it in the religious arena. We're seeing it in the economic arena. We're seeing it in society. We cannot continue the way we're continuing. And I was, certain things really kind of both a surprise and bother me a little bit when you step away and realize that everything that you've been taught up to this point is a lie. At some level, it's a lie. From history to current events, how things are playing out,
Yeah,
it's kind of disturbing.
sends people running into one of two directions. One, looking for answers. Two, to bury their head further in the sand so they don't know.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I just want to say this too. When we talk about the Pope, because I received a couple of emails from this, all right?
And I do have an article just on a comment he made.
Yeah, and I understand the context in which that comment was made. But before you say that, I just want to say this. It would be very easy, simple for us to pick apart various doctrinal religions, Catholicism, even some variations of the Protestant faith. Okay, but that's not our job. All right, so it's not like we are running from any type of issues. We're not running from them. We are looking at the larger picture because we only have a limited amount of time, folks. Meaning, Joe and I only have a limited amount of time. We feel anyway to get the word out there, to help others, to see the big picture. We're looking at the big picture. We're not too concerned. I mean, we stand for what is in the Bible, what is right. You know that we talk about Scripture, what's scripturally sound. We have others come on, talk about their version of things, whether it's Steve Quayle, Genesis 6 Giants, or whatever. But the bottom line is this: we believe that our battle lies in the larger picture. So therefore, we're not going to sit back and pick apart different denominations or talk about doctrinal differences. It's not a wimping out choice. No, it's not that at all. It's about picking our battles and choosing where we need to focus our energy. That's where it's at. So, for the people who are writing me about, well, Catholicism isn't teaching the right doctrine. Okay,
it doesn't matter what the church governing bodies do. It matters what the people of those church do. And every Christian, from a Catholic to a Methodist, if your goal is not in seeking Jesus and growing with Him, then you're not in the right place, regardless of what church you go to.
Exactly. So please understand this, and I don't want to sound too defensive. I just want to delineate why we do what we do and where we put our focus. Our focus lies in the larger picture, the larger battle. I received an email earlier about should you worship on a Saturday or a Sunday or a Friday? Okay, what's the Sabbath? Well, there will come a time, and it was interesting because I had a conversation earlier with someone who said, there will come a time when you will be lucky and grateful to be able to worship on any day in any location with any type of Christian. Okay, so look at the larger picture is all I'm saying. And I just wanted to push that home because it's not a fact of us not addressing the things like doctrinal differences. We're looking at the larger picture because there will come a time when the persecution of Christians of all colors, of all faiths, of all types of, like I said, of all colors, basically, the denominations are going to be persecuted. If you believe in the Word of God,
if you believe in the name of Jesus Christ, you will be persecuted.
That's correct. So, I want to clear that too. Go ahead.
Going back to what the Pope said real quick, and I'll post a link in the chat. And this is, he said this in a joking matter, as the Pope Francis toasted to the cardinals who had just elected him by joking, "May God forgive you for what you've done," in electing him. He was referring to. Now, some may say that's nefarious, and some may say, well, that's just having a sense of humor. That's something that we're going to see over time, And the article goes on to say how once he found out that he was chosen He says, I am a sinner, but I do accept. And the way that it usually works, apparently, he sits in a ceremonial chair, and all the cardinals come up to him and greet him, which he came down to their level, is what Cardinal Tom Dolan said. He didn't sit in the chair; he remained standing, face to face, while each one of them greeted him, and that's what the article goes. But just saying, may God forgive you for what you've done. You know, being
Prophetic or not?
being in the Vatican, being a cardinal, having your life totally devoted to the Lord, you would joke about things like this, and you would joke about things in a godly manner, and I can see the humor, how that would be funny, as being a member of the Vatican, being a cardinal, but at the same time, to say it like that, it rubs me both ways wrong. I can see the humor in it, but at the same time, it's kind of unsettling for when people are on edge about everything, and they're looking for a good religious leader that will follow what the Bible says, what sound doctrine says, and keep it simple like that.
I don't feel that way, Joe. I'll tell you what. If I was in that position, which I'm sure many people are saying, thank God, right now that you're not. I'm sure people would be. I'd be saying the same thing. May God forgive you for what you've done.
I mean, I understand the humor. Yeah. And it is funny if it's just that, if it's just humor,
Right.
And only he knows in his heart if it was just humor or not. And like we said, time will tell. From the fruit of his works, we'll know.
I just want to say as well, I saw this and I wanted to comment on this. The Los Angeles Times recently ran an article, Angry White Men More Dangerous Than International Terrorists. I'm not sure how many people have seen this.
Oh, yeah, I did see that.
I got to tell you, it reads in part that there are, in increasingly frightening numbers, cells of angry men in the United States preparing for combat with the U.S. government. Well, wait a minute. Aren't they preparing for combat with us? Well, anyway, they are unusually heavily armed, blinded by an intractable hatred, often motivated by religious zeal. Let me translate for you. Yeah, we got a few guns and we believe in God. Okay, they are not jihadists. That's right, we're not Muslim. They are white ring Americans, nearly all with an obsessive attachment to guns, who may represent a greater danger to the lives of American civilians than international terrorists. Yeah, okay, a little hyperbole there. Who wrote this? Philip Hodges. Hey, Philip. No, I can't say that. All right, of course, he goes on. Their main primary source for their fear-mongering was none other than the Southern Poverty Law Center. All you have to do is show up on their list, okay?
Yeah, and the NRA's on their list. You have the John Birch Society on their list. You have, I think, at one point, you had Ron Paul supporters on their list. Anybody who does not go along with the communist government agenda, that is a communist socialist government agenda that is in the open by the Southern Poverty Law Center, to be labeled an extremist or a terrorist is a badge of honor, really.
Well, yes, and I'm proud to be against abortion. I'm proud to be pro God. I'm proud to be pro life. I'm proud to be a part of the shall I say, the angry white men motivated by religious zeal. I think that's a good thing. Certainly not the para-religious or para-political stuff that we're talking about with the Muslims, but
any person of any color that is an American citizen who wants to stand up for their constitutional rights should not be marginalized or be called names, put on lists. They should be looked upon as people who are trying to help, and if that's their intention, to try to restore the values of this Judeo-Christian founded nation, I have no problem with that. I do have a problem with the people who start militias and either are infiltrated or do have the intention on doing physical damage, offensive physical damage. There's no place for that in what we're doing.
Yeah, and I've got. Let me just kind of go backwards and say I think I erroneously attributed this to Philip Hodges when in fact he was just reprinting something and commenting on it. But that said, he does close with, "It's okay to be a paranoid conspiracy theorist if you work for the government. If you're a civilian," and by the way, he's referring to the Southern Poverty Law Center's list of terrorist groups. But if you're a civilian, that's all the probable cause the government needs to label you as a potential domestic terrorist. And see, this is really where we're at, because we're looking right now at any given moment, folks. Anything can happen where we could have a dollar collapse, we could have an economic collapse, whether it begins with the Japanese yen and goes toward America, or it happens somewhere in the Middle East that cuts off the free flow of oil, or who knows, or a nuclear blast going off anywhere. Don't forget, we've got North Korea that is the proxy of China, that's heavily involved in some shady things, even off the coasts of our own shores. Even off our own coasts, and this is something we have to take into account. But bear in mind that we are at the precipice of a nuclear war, and I shouldn't say nuclear war, a World War III, where there will be many deaths, and with that will come the persecution of Christians, will come the times that we have not seen in a very long time, and I'll tell
If
you
ever.
right now. Well, yeah, that's right, and a lot of people aren't going to make it through, and we have to understand that we've got to prepare. And that leaves me with my question I usually ask at the end of the show, but I'll ask it right now. What have you done this week to prepare? To prepare mentally, spiritually, and practically? What have you done? Hopefully, a lot. Now, with that, before as we start the second half of the first hour, I just want to tell you a little bit about our guest coming up right now. I met Susan Price once, folks, in Western New York, and a trip there I took, and she is the mother of Aaron, her son Aaron Kennefick. 30 and a half years old at the time of his death. This young man was a tremendous, and I mean a tremendous young man. A young man, a boy, a son any parent would be proud to have. Graduated from high school in 1997 and went directly into the service. Susan Price is Aaron's mother, of course. Let me tell you about Aaron first, and then I'll tell you about Susan. Aaron had gone into the service right after high school. Became a Marine, went to boot camp. Was actually Marine of the Year twice. Was awarded Marine of the Year twice during his career in the Marines. He spent 4 years at Quantico from 1997 to 2001, and then he spent some time in Stuttgart, Germany, from 2001 to 2004 as a Marine. He was also involved in. He was also transferred to Okinawa. Spent some time there. I think he's been into, I don't know, close to 40 countries during his time in the service. And we know now that Aaron was an operational asset for the Central Intelligence Agency. The story of Aaron Kennefick has a tragic ending, very tragic ending. And the ending has very few answers. And we have a mom that wants answers, because Aaron, on the 8th of September 2009, was essentially executed in the Kunar province of Afghanistan in something called the Ganjgal ambush. That took place in Pesh Valley on September 8th, 2009. What underscored his tragic death is the fact that, by all accounts, ladies and gentlemen, it was a setup from the inside. Now think about that for a moment. You've got a Marine's Marine, the best son a mother could ever ask for, a brave Marine, who took on every task without question. His bravery is just impossible to describe. His bravery goes well beyond any awards and citations and accomplishments. And believe me, there were many. The oath that Aaron Kennefic held so seriously went far beyond the things that lead similar people to greatness. He had to uphold his values against the very malicious intentions of members of his own government who far outranked him. It would lead him to a mission that he would not survive, because the elimination of Aaron was the real objective, I dare say, of the ambush in Ganjgal in September of 2009. His story is about his struggle as a Marine against people holding power based on our investigation and based on his mother's research and investigation. His mother's search for answers, which have yet been answered, are treasonous. With the most counterproductive military missions assigned to Aaron and his crew, more horrific than people can even imagine, more terrible than people can imagine. Susan's story, and this is going to be the first of several, I'm sure, several visits. It's going to tell about a U.S. government and elements within the U.S. government shipping huge caches of weapons and drugs and money, weapons that are used to start wars that lead to grave destruction in foreign lands that we can't even, names we can't even pronounce, in areas we don't know. It's about campaign contributions from those places where the CIA strikes the deals, and it's about the United States supplying both sides of the conflict with weapons to fight the deadly wars in which we are engaged. But you know what? At the very heart of it all, it's about top U.S. officials that seem to have this need to kill off the very best combat forces in America. Why? There could be a number of reasons. Why is we're searching for the why. We're searching for the why in Aaron Kennefic's death. And I've got to tell you, I've got a lot of respect for Susan Price. First of all, Aaron, once again, a soldier's soldier. A man who never complained, who never whined, who never disobeyed an order. But perhaps he questioned a larger order, a larger agenda. Perhaps the question, when you get to the point where you are fighting a war, or you are in very deep with the CIA or other intelligence agencies, and you are given tasks, given assignments, that you believe you're on the right side. You believe in your heart of hearts that you're doing what you're doing for the good of America and every American, so we can maintain our standard of living. Yet there comes a point in time when the assignments or the activities become such that you ask yourself, am I doing what am I doing? And is what I'm doing legal? Is what I'm doing really for the benefit of America? Or has America, as I have said, and Joe has said in this program, and thanks to my source, or has America been a captured operation? Is America a captured operation? Am I doing this not for America, but for someone's personal agenda, or for the agenda that has been hijacked by people within our government? And you know, Aaron, and let me be very clear here, Aaron is a hero in my eyes, his mom's eyes, his fellow Marines' eyes. Aaron's honor must be protected because he was a very honorable soldier, a very honorable young man. And we've got a mom on the phone, on our newsmaker line, who wants answers about her son's death, who has asked for answers to our government and has not gotten them. And as a mother of a young man who died, who shed blood in a foreign land, that's unacceptable. Tell me something, listeners, everyone listening to this broadcast. Would you accept non-answers? Would you accept lies? Would you accept being put off when all you want is the truth? I don't think you would, nor do I think you should. So our special guest tonight is Susan L. Price. She has a great, aside from being a great mom of a great Marine, she's appeared on CBS 60 Minutes. She's been interviewed nationally and internationally, all across the radio and TV communities. She's been involved in public relations. She's an advocate and liaison with various 501c3 organizations and foundations nationwide. She's helped at various veterans organizations. She's been engaged in public speaking and done a variety of things. But the biggest thing of all is her search for the truth. And she's not only acting on behalf of herself and Aaron, but she's acting on behalf of every Gold Star mother out there, every mother or every father, every parent, every sibling who has lost a loved one in the heat of battle, under questionable circumstances, and not got answers. She is carrying the weight of everyone that wants answers on her shoulders. She's the point, the tip of the spear for answers. And one thing I learned, you don't get between a mom and her cubs, whether it's a bear or the mother of a Marine. With that, Susan, welcome to the program tonight.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Susan, it's great to have you. Can you speak up just a little bit? We're having a little trouble hearing you.
Sure. Thank
Okay,
you
good.
so much for having me.
Well, it's our pleasure. Susan, we met a couple. I'd say now it's been about almost 2 years. I think that we've known each other. We've talked. We've your son
Actually, I think it's 2.5 or 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I think you're right. Time flies. Your son was killed in Afghanistan, but there's a lot of run up to that, and I'm going to kind of just ask you to narrate. Both Joe and I are kind of really interested in what you've got to say. Give us kind of if you don't mind, give us a kind of a capsulated version of. Just kind of a summary as to who Aaron was and what happened, or how he got in the Marines and then what happened. Just kind of give us a narrative as to who Aaron was and right up to the day of the ambush.
Sure. Well, you know that I'm the daughter of a Marine. My father was a Marine, and so growing up for Aaron, he would hear stories about his grandfather. And, you never know what a child is going to take in when you're mentoring to them via grandparents or, a father and son, mother and daughter. And growing up, I would say to my son when he got into high school, what do you plan on doing when you get out of high school? And he was a great athlete, but not everybody can be a professional football player or baseball player or basketball. And he said, Mom, I've been thinking a lot about it and listening to Grandpa, and I really want to join the Marine Corps. And this was a few years before 9/11. And I thought, geez, what kind of stuff is my father telling as he told my son, And, but I let my son choose, just like my girls, they chose their professions and what they want to do. And so Aaron, we had the recruiters come over and talk with them, and I said, check the other groups out too, just so that you are fair to you. And he did, but the Marines, that's what he wanted to be. And So he enlisted on delayed entry at the beginning of his senior year of high school, and he trained that whole year before, well, 9 months or 8 months before. And then when he, that was called the delayed entry program. And right after graduation, about 10 days, 2 weeks later, he was ready to ship out to Paris Island, South Carolina. And Aaron was a very big family person. His dad was a major athlete and was his coach for football, baseball, basketball, and his sister cheerleaded for him and his football team. And, you know, we were the family that always, my children were always involved with sports. So we were on the go 6 days a week on a ball field. And like I said, Aaron's dad was coaching. And I was the football or baseball or basketball mom. And then the sisters cheerleaded. So we just were the family that played together. And so he grew with confidence and always was a good athlete. And but he, growing up and going into the service, he missed that time away from home, from his family, and his new family began to be formed of his brothers and brothers in arms, sisters in arms. And before I knew it, here's my son, you know, when he came back from boot camp, had an array of stories and people that lived all over the country, like one does. They acquire friends from all over. But Aaron would tell you, and from what I heard about him and his profession with all his Marine buddies and his Special Ops Army buddies, is that he was such a serious Marine. He had definitely had two sides to him. When he was at work, he was straight-laced and lived by the book. And Dakota Meyer, the Medal of Honor, even mentions in his book that Aaron Kenefick was a play-by-the-book type of Marine, and that we know for sure. His dad and sisters and the rest of our family know that was Aaron. But when he was home around his friends and his family, this is what Aaron would say, because I have what he's written about himself. He would tell you, I'm a laid-back guy who tries not to take himself too seriously. I've experienced many things in life, both good and bad, and I have to say it's made me the strong man that I am today. I cherish my friends and my family more than anything in this world, as they have always been there for me through the good times and the bad. I've been all over the world, pick a place, and I've probably been there, but my days of traveling are far from over. I have a competitive spirit, and I am driven by ambitions, which include first and foremost happiness and whatever that encompasses. I'm not afraid to take chances or risks. No risk, no reward. But I do understand that for every action, there is a consequence. And then he says, I'd rather die like a man than live like a coward. And if Aaron was around you and you were fortunate to have him as a friend, as we were to have him as a family member, and he was home just relaxing, he probably would be wearing a pair of jeans and a baseball shirt, most likely a Yankees T-shirt and a cap, or some sports shirt, because he loved sports, and that was his relief. You know, that and holding the babies in the family and just chilling with the sisters or his dad or playing golf. And he truly enjoyed that. He really loved his families and his friends, but he loved God and his country. And he knew the Lord too, I have to tell you. And we were very fortunate, our family was, to hear from him 2 days before he was killed. He called us twice and to tell us that he loved us and to thank us for praying and to please pray for one of the Afghan soldiers that had been killed. You know, I believe this man was for lack of a better word, exploded, hit with a bomb. And it just missed Aaron and Doc Layton, the corpsman. And then, 2 days later, when my family and I were confronted with the 2 Marines and told about the bad news, we were just devastated because here 2 days we talked to him and then, he's gone. But we do know that he knew the Lord, and that gives us, and that's our belief, it gives us peace.
I'm going to tell you, Susan, I know your family. At least I think I know your family. They're the warmest people I've ever met. You and your family are the salt of the earth, and I've got to tell you, Aaron. From what I know of Aaron, I would be proud to have him as my son. But folks, the reason that we're having Susan on tonight, and the reason that you're hearing what you're hearing tonight, and how it's all relevant. It kind of relates to the introduction I had with Susan, and I'm not going to take much more of her time, but I just want to say this. We are all Aaron Kenneficks right now. We are all in the place of Aaron right now, if you want to look at it. What happened to Aaron, what happened at the Battle of Ganjgal in the Kunar province in Afghanistan, can happen to us all. And if we can't, that's one part of it. The second part of it is if we, as a people, and if Susan, as a mother of a fallen hero, cannot get answers, simple answers to a question, to questions, then where are we as a country? But in particular, we've got to pay close attention to what Susan is going to be telling us and the narrative she's got, because the story about Aaron, about his travels, but more importantly about what happened in the days leading up to the battle itself, and also the conversations he would have with his mother, and the mother's intuition coupled with Aaron keeping to the code, the military code, and the code of silence, but the amount of information that was conveyed to Susan in advance of his untimely passing is important for all of us to understand. And the bigger picture here is what we have to understand, but we also have to demand answers for this Gold Star mother, and for every Gold Star mother, and for every one of us in the country, in the United States of America. But anyway, Susan, so you're right. I mean, and I sensed when I met your family, what a strong belief in God, and I'm sure that telegraphed right to Aaron, and I'm sure Aaron had a strong belief in God. And not only that, he cared about the country, the spirit of America. But okay, so now Aaron was 30 years and 6 months old, roughly, when he passed. But because I'm looking at the clock and thinking that we could talk a lot about his early history. Let's kind of fast forward up to the time, let's say from Quantico forward, and your thoughts and the things that Aaron said to you, and your interaction with Aaron, and kind of how everything leading up to that fateful day, September 8th, 2009.
Okay, so when he left Quantico, and he was just a corporal, and then he said, "Mom, they're going to send me to Germany." And I thought, wow, there's really not a lot of Marines in Germany at that time. And this is before 9/11, and we did not have Department of Homeland Security. Remember? Back then,
That's right.
Before 9/11, that came after. In fact, this was just a couple of years before the Kosovo problems, or in that time frame. And
right.
So, I'm sorry. It's all that time frame. And so he goes over to Germany, and then they send him back, and Aaron says, "I have to go to jump school in Georgia." And I said, "Well, that's crazy that they sent you back, and the government spent all that money, why didn't they send you from the States before they send you to Germany for 2 weeks and then send you back? And he said, I don't know, Mom. They have their reasons. But, so, you know, he went to the airborne school at Fort Benning, and he had to go to Marine jump school because what Aaron's job was when he went back to Stuttgart, Germany, was that he was the NCOIC, the non-commissioned officer in charge of the training and airborne operation over there. And in Germany at this time, they were getting ready to set up with AFRICOM. So, you know, anybody that was in Germany was working in Africa. But Aaron was like a lone wolf because his particular MOS, which he had a couple of them, 2 or 3 of them actually, that I know about, one of them would be an MOS specialist working, the Training Airborne Operations, NCOIC, for special missions. So he went to Fort Benning, and, you know, knowing Aaron, here he is, he's selected as Distinguished Honor Grad. So he goes to Army Jump School. Here's a Marine in Army Jump School, comes out Distinguished Honor Grad. Well, I knew that was going to happen because everything he does, if he's not first, he's second or up at the top. So he goes back to Germany, and then they put him in charge as the non-commissioned officer in charge of Special Operation Command, Europe. And he's over there from 2001 till 2004. And in that time, 41 countries, and one of the big places was Africa, which included Liberia, Sierra Leone, the Ivory Coast, and South Africa.
And listeners, please pay attention to these locations.
Pardon me?
Susan, I was urging listeners to please pay attention to these locations because I think that this is an important aspect of this. All of the places that your son was dispatched to.
You know what, Doug? You're absolutely right, because what Aaron was involved with then is now coming to pass. Everything. And so when I had started to evaluate all that, but while Aaron was over there in Germany, Stuttgart, Germany, like I said, he would be going on these missions all over the place. And, you know, he was there for 3 years. And one particular night, he called me, and it was, 2:30 in the morning, and I heard the Black Hawk helicopter. And I hear him, Mom, I got to go away, but I'll be back in a couple of months. And when I get back, I get to see the whole family, and don't worry about me. I'll be okay. I'm going on a mission, and I can't tell you where I'm going. But the only thing I can say, it's pretty hot. And I said, okay, well, I'm lucky I got that. And because my family and I always had to watch what we said when we talked to them, and we didn't even know. I mean, if we said, hey, how's work going? You know, what's going on with this? We heard this on the news. You know, he would tell his dad or his sisters or me or his uncle, don't talk to me about that. I'll get in trouble. You can't talk about certain things. And so, you know, we felt like we were in the service with Aaron because it was always something so important and very serious with him.
And he always took seriously, Susan, he always took seriously that code, that ethical code. He took that very, very seriously. Yes. He would not violate that. And folks, please understand.
No, he never violated. He could never tell us anything. He didn't tell us what he did, where he was, what he was doing. You know, if we innocently said something that we didn't know, what do we know? We're busy being American, you know, and living our life. we don't know any better. We're innocent family members. You know, this is why we have America, because of sons and daughters like mine and the others that are out there with their sacrifices.
Exactly right, Miss Price.
So,
and if you don't mind, we're going to cut to a break now, if this is a good time.
Sure.
We're at the top of the hour. Okay, I'm going to put you back on hold, and we'll bring you back right back at the top of right after the break. It's only a few short minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report this Friday, March 15th, 2013, with our very special guest, Ms. Susan Price, mother of Aaron Kennefic, a Marine who died in Afghanistan in battle. And she is telling her story about her experience with that. And we have only scratched the surface of this wonderful family and the tragedy that they have gone through. Folks, stay with us. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. We'll be right back.
Hi folks, Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eilida Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com. Or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
You better wake up fast and listen to this, America. The Obama campaign has launched attack squads disguised as truth teams dedicated to intimidating and silencing all political dissent carried over the internet that criticizes the Marxist Obama. Truth squads specifically focused on covering up Obama's endless trail of lies, corruption, and subversion, and using the Gestapo power of our own government to police and censor the internet and shut down websites that dare to carry the real truth about Obama's Marxist coup. Remember the names of these Gestapo-style agencies that work right there in your neighborhood. KeepingHisWord.com, KeepingGOPHonest.com, and AttackWatch.com. KGB, SS, and Gestapo-style police-state gangster organizations that work to silence the important voices of patriot dissent, some of which have already been shut down by Obama's orders. Adolf Hitler would have been proud. We're the 21st century Tea Party patriots.
You want answers? I think I can tell you want answers. I'm walking through. You can't handle the truth.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to this Friday, fantastic Friday edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. This is the 15th day, the Ides of March, 15th day of March, 2013. We're just coming up on the second hour. Our very special guest, Miss Susan Price. Folks, I want to tell you a little bit here, too. Susan is launching her own website. It is brand spanking new. Okay. It's got a great name, too, priceforjustice.com, priceforjustice.com. It's not populated with information yet, but I would urge everyone to go ahead and bookmark that website, priceforjustice.com, because I'm going to tell you something. She's going to be putting up some information that's going to just knock your socks off, connect some dots, well beyond what we're going to get into tonight. But we're going to touch on some very important highlights tonight. But like I said, Susan Price is the mother of Aaron Kennefic, a fallen U.S. Marine, a hero's hero, really. And also, if that name rings a bell, but you can't quite place it, Dakota Meyer, the former U.S. Marine and a veteran of the war in Afghanistan, he was awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions during the Battle of Ganjgal on September 8th, 2009 in Kunar Province. Wrote a book about that as well. Very, very interesting young man, honored for his attempts to save Aaron and his fallen comrades at that time. So if Aaron's name sounds familiar, but you didn't know, perhaps you couldn't place it, Dakota Meyer, the Medal of Honor winner, in fact, wrote a book about the exploits. Into the Fire, it's called, a first-hand account of the most extraordinary battle in the Afghan war. And just before we bring her back on, I just want to say that I believe, based on my time with Susan and what I know and what I've seen and everything that I've gone through, and it's voluminous, let me tell you. I believe personally that Aaron was meant to die because of either what he knew or what he was unwilling to do. That's number one. And number two, anyone who would dare question the well-grounded nature, the well-groundedness of our guest tonight. Me having personally met her, talked with her, interviewed her, got to know her, I could tell you this. She's probably one of the most sanest, well-grounded people I've ever met. And quite frankly, for losing a son in the manner in which she did, I'm not sure I'd be that coherent at this point. Yet she is, and she's a trooper. With that, Susan, welcome back to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Thank you, Doug.
You know, you're an inspiration to us all. And by the way, I just want to say one last thing. What happened to your son, what happened in this battle, this is a microcosm of what we're seeing in America today, because as your story unfolds, as you continue narrating the story here, people are going to understand that America, even to the extent perhaps of our armed forces, we are a captured operation. And you've heard me say that before. Those are really not my words. Those are words of someone a lot wiser, a lot more knowledgeable than I am. But understand what that means. We are a captured operation. But I'm not going to take any more time from you. Susan, okay, you were talking about your son, his early military career. We've gotten now, he's involved in AFRICOM and such. Take it from
Africa.
there. Yeah.
So, he calls us, and, he always told his dad and I and his sisters and aunts and uncles and cousins. We're a very close family, so we don't really have too many secrets. And he tells us what he can, that I'm coming back to the States. I'm coming to Tampa, Florida, and I was chosen to be the enlisted aide to the Deputy Director of Plans and Policies. And I thought, wow, that's right under Condoleezza Rice at the time, because George Bush was in office. And, Bush was, and Aaron was handpicked to be the attendee at the Republican National Convention. And this particular directorate that this General Mark Kimmett that Aaron was going to be the enlisted aide for worked in George Bush's cabinet. Okay, so that was J5 at U.S. Central Command. And I thought, wow, my son really is quite the Marine to have such big eyes on him, you know, because when he was, when I left one thing out, when he was over in Quantico and they were evaluating him, you know, for the security and this, that, and the other, he was hand-selected to be the commandant of the Marine Corps personal driver and attendee. So right from the very beginning of Aaron's over 12-year career, he was hand-selected. He was very articulate when he spoke, very good-looking, very athletic, but brilliant, very smart, always scored at the top, and very creative. And you may as well say he was born a Marine. White-collar Marine, I laugh and joke because he was very strategic. But he also, Doug, he acted kind of like you because you were, you know, investigator and you have a forensic side to you. And Aaron was quite the Marine patrol person with that intel and detective sense, always going and planning. If plan A and B doesn't work, let's do C and D, you know. And one of his favorite sayings was, prepare for the worst, plan for the best, but prepare for the worst. And so when they did transfer him from the headquarters over at Special Operation Command Europe, he came over to the United States Central Command in Tampa, Florida, and worked as the enlisted aide for this Deputy of Plans and Policies. And he also was the senior non-commissioned officer in charge there. So, you know, he didn't have much room to goof around. You know, he had these long hours. This general kept him many times and the whole staff later most of the week for work to get stuff done. And at the same time, Aaron always kept up with his studies because he took the online college courses. And so anyhow, he was doing his job, and he was there from 2004 to 2007. But the first 2 years, 2004 to 2006, he worked in this one division, J5. And he was promoted to staff sergeant. He moved up pretty quickly. And one of his jobs, he was a PT administrator as well. So he had that obligation as well as briefing and debriefing and whatever else that I don't know about. Because like I said, again, my son never told us, never told anyone all the matters that he was involved with because like you stated, that code was so important. You don't violate that. However, I do know, after working for a certain amount of time with this particular division, he was annoyed to see that people were not being treated and respected like humans are supposed to. And he had words with the one general that he was working under. And, you know, he was this guy's bodyguard, and his attaché traveled with him, flew with him to Africa, to Iraq, Qatar, wherever he had to go, Aaron had to go.
So the general, okay, the general we're talking about is Mark T. Kimmett. Is that who we're talking about from Central Command?
Sir.
All right. Okay,
yes,
go ahead.
Well, yeah.
Good. All right.
And so he worked with him, and, you know, Aaron made a couple comments. He didn't really talk about people at work too much because he didn't want to, if they were good, bad, or indifferent, he didn't bring his work home to his family. You know, when he was home, he wanted to be home, you know. And but a couple times, I would hear, him make a comment and say, this guy's a bad dude, and nobody likes him, and stuff like that. And
Nothing specific. Yeah, nothing specific, but folks, let me tell you something. There's a special bond, and you know this, ladies and gentlemen, between a mom and her son that is so unique. So Susan, you knew when Aaron talked to you, even without saying anything, he could say a whole lot, right?
oh yes, that's so true. Doug, sometimes people, and I know you can pick it up, I can, a lot of folks, especially around the people like your child or a sibling, it's not so much what people say, it's what they don't say. And they may not say it with their mouth, but they will say it with their gestures.
That's
and throughout my son's career, he always would tell, our family, don't ever talk to me about work. I can't tell you anything. Not that we wanted to know anyway. But many times, Aaron would be drinking some sweet tea or a drink, and he would say, Mama, if I put this down in put this here, a certain place, know that it's there for a reason. And I looked at him and thought about it for a second, because I could be in the middle of doing something, and it was just something he wanted to get off his chest. And I said, okay, I understand. Because in other words, I can't tell you anything, but if something is in a different order, because you could go to Aaron's apartment and you would never find that one thing out of place, ever. It just was not in his character. And even as a little boy, I mean, he would have his baseball, football cards arranged, his little cars, everything was in order. Now, my girls were another story, but my son, everything was in order. And that's a joke. My girls are very fussy to this day, but at the time, I'm just saying, as a child, growing up, I mean, if I had 3 papers in my backseat of my vehicle and it needed to be vacuumed, my son would take my car to have it detailed. It bothered him that anything was out of order. So he used that as an example. And I thought, okay, well, if things are put together a certain way or taken apart a certain way, that meant something. And throughout the 12 years, that was reiterated to me on a monthly basis. And I am not exaggerating.
So that's important for people. And people
Yeah.
need to understand that, because this will come into play a little bit later. I've had the opportunity to look at Aaron's notes and field notes and what have you, and I'll tell you something. Very, very.
Handwriting.
Oh yes, and extremely organized. All right, and this is going to come into play a little bit later. So, well, Susan, as time progressed, and Aaron kind of. Well, you suspected, and ultimately,
I just want to say, it sounds like he blossomed as a Marine. He was something. I mean, all soldiers are special, but obviously, for him to be handpicked, for so many different things, and to be put in charge, pretty much shows me he was a born leader. No matter what he did, he was a leader at it.
And I think
you're absolutely right.
And I think it's important for people to know too now that as he progressed through the ranks, these secret missions, it became clear that Aaron was no ordinary Marine, no ordinary position. Aaron was now going places and doing things that perhaps were more on the intelligence side of things. And I think that okay, all right. So
yeah, and that was told to me as well, because when he actually had words with this general and told this man off twice, because this particular general Well, I guess, I don't know, I never met him, but I was told that he had an unorthodox manner about how he treated human beings. And through, and it's funny because I had met a general, a brigadier general sometime after Aaron passed, and this particular brigadier general said to me, "Oh, did he ever tell you any stories about the general we both worked for at CENTCOM in J5? And I said, yes, sir, he did. He said, oh, well, I have some stories of my own, and so does everybody else. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, let me tell you one of them. And I said, okay. So this general proceeded to tell me that he was up for promotion, and that the general was a colonel or something then, had worked in the same administration. Everybody worked together. And, this man told me that his wife was at the office that day, like 5 or 6 hours early, and Kimmett said to this particular general, you need to send your wife home and bring her back at 8 o'clock tonight because I don't feel like promoting you right now. And so then the man had to send his wife home and bring her back at 8 o'clock, and he said, I could see if we were busy and working on something, but we weren't. And he said, your son took the brunt of it all the time. And so Aaron just got tired of how he did that to everybody and went up to him one day and told them that he was unethical and that he wasn't going to, he didn't want to be a part of anything that was going on outside of Central Command.
And Susan, I'll point this out. General Kimmett was appointed by Bush, President George W. Bush, to serve as the Assistant Secretary of State for Political Military Affairs. There he was responsible for this worldwide State Department political military issues. Now, he was instrumental in key defense decisions that during his period at CENTCOM, by the way, included operations in Afghanistan. And I should say this, too, because this is important as well. He served as the Deputy Director for Plans and Strategy at CENTCOM for long-range war planning, in theater-wide strategic planning, military planning efforts in Iraq, Afghanistan, and the long war strategic concept worldwide. Folks, that's important to understand. Long war strategic concept worldwide. But Susan, there were a couple of issues that you told me about, and perhaps you could share this if you feel comfortable with our listeners about some things that Aaron had to do for this general at different times, strange times, if you will.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, the cat's out of the bag now. Most people know about that because, and I actually heard it from some of the Marines at CENTCOM that were over there, told me before my son even told me about it. So, and that was the talk of the town over there at CENTCOM because nobody told this general off or told him anything. But Aaron did. He got right up in his face. And this particular general, he was tied in with Iraq. And I think most people know what went on over in Fallujah and Abu Ghraib prison crimes and all that. And so my son, was studying for his master's degree in criminal justice, and then he changed his major to business. He changed a few things in his life about that period, and I kind of wondered, but I didn't question him. I figured, I don't want to put too much out there because he can't always tell me stuff, so I just trust. And he'll tell me if he wants to. But he said to me one day, Mom, I'm really off. And I said, son, what's going on? And he said, well, I'm kept late at the office, and then I get home and I have to study and do my work with my professor online. And then, he said, I shouldn't tell you this, but I'm really aggravated. And he says, this general is sending material to my apartment, and I have to go and drive it to his house in Tampa at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I said, what? And he says, yeah, I have to go and drop this off at 3 o'clock in the morning because he said that nobody's ever up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and that's the perfect time for me to bring it over. And I don't know what it is, and I don't want to know what it is, but it's, you know, like packets of information or whatever. And so I said, well, Aaron, that's not good, but I'm sure you're going to do the right thing, and you have to follow your heart. And he says, yeah, well, this is going to stop because I'm not a machine. I'm a human being, and I work really hard, and I'm kept there late. And then when I get home, I only have 2 or 3 hours to work, and it's a very stressful and demanding job. And so I just kind of, and then he said, I shouldn't even told you that, Mom. Please forgive me. I'm so sorry. And I said, well, that's all right, because, you know, I already had heard stuff, but I didn't want to let on, okay? And so Aaron had told this man off. That was the first time. And then when he told him off, this particular general told my son, you're going to go to Africa, fly there, and pick up my uniform. And Aaron said, sir, we can overnight it, and it won't cost the taxpayers the money. And he said, I just told you I want you to go and pick it up personally, and then you're going to get back on the plane and come back and bring it back to me. So Aaron did. He did just what he was supposed to do. And then when there was another go-round where he told this guy off again, but this time he made him sign his transfer papers to go to J2, which was, you know, a different involved intel work. And when he went to him and had him sign off on his paperwork, this particular general was upset that he was leaving and asked why. And he, you know, Aaron told him straight out he didn't like him. And this general also made him fly to Qatar for a few months too. And it's all very strange, you know, certain activities that went on during this time frame. I remember Aaron was gone during his birthday, which was February 5th, and, you know, I paid my cell phone bill, everything. And that one day on Aaron's birthday, he could not call in or receive any phone calls on his cell phone. And he called me the next day and said, Mom, I tried to call you. I couldn't even call out. So his phone was down and my phone was down. And I never thought about that till today, Doug, because a lot of things are interconnected.
Yes, they are. Yeah, they are.
A lot of people, places, and things are interconnected. And you know, the Lord used my son's death to awaken me up to things that I knew, but I was like half awake and half asleep. But now I can tell you I am fully awake, and it's my job to wake other people up. And it's my mission.
And thank you for that, because there are a lot of other Gold Star mothers and a lot of parents without children and a lot of children without parents that have that want answers like you do, and you know you're at the tip of the spear on this. But I've got to say, I talked to a contact of mine, and as we were talking, you know, he said it would seem, or perhaps maybe this is my interpretation of what he said, is it would seem that during this period of time, Aaron was wondering, you know, is what I'm doing legal? And I think that you know, it not only is what am I doing legal, but has my loyalty. Actually, loyalty to my country, my God, my family, my job, my position has been turned against me because I am now working for a captured operation. And more than that, when it gets difficult to tell the good guys from the bad, you have to ask yourself that question. And I think this is where Aaron was at the time. Exactly what does my mission, is this even making sense? What I'm doing, is it making sense?
Right.
Well, Susan, let's get closer to Afghanistan. So let's fast forward to toward his deployment to Afghanistan here, because I know that with the Kimmett situation, there was a lot of discord. There's a lot of questions as to what was going on. But what? How did he get transferred to Afghanistan?
Oh, okay. Well, Marines and military folks move around every 2 to 3 years for the average. And especially Marines, usually it's every 3 years. It could be different depending on your MLS. And in July of 2007, Aaron left U.S. Central Command because his time was over there. Well, let me just, before I skip one thing. For the whole year of 2007, because he worked for Kimmett 2004 to 2006. In 2007, he made Marine of the Year for the second time. And that's when he worked in J2, which was your human intel, counter intel, intelligence division. And he had to go back and forth to Iraq as well. So, so he left July 2007 and went over to the Combat Assault Battalion, 3rd Marine Division, which was the expeditionary force in Okinawa, Japan. And he was the administrator chief over there, and he was supposed to, which I knew he was so excited to get there because this was such a low-profile job for him after having such big eyes on him and high profile the whole first part of his entire career. Not that there's anything lowly about his position that he had there. It just was not as big eyes and pressure, a very low pressure job. And he was there, he's supposed to be there 3 years, and he was there 2 years. And they had a team of Marines that they sent over to Afghanistan as embedded training team mentors and trainers to the Afghanistan people. And Aaron was on the 8th round in. So ETT 2-8 he was the 8th team in. So if you figure it out, they go there for 6 to 8 months. So, a few years earlier is when they started doing this. And I thought about it, and I go, why would you send these men that are, some of them were older than Aaron, and you had your younger guys too, but a lot of older, refined guys that had been on deployments all over the place, mentoring to Afghanistan? Isn't it dumbing down a Marine? Knowing what Marines do, they're the first in. And they were going to be providing a security force for, the presidential election. Karzai, remember the election over there in August 2009?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron's team got there around the 21st of July, 2009. And this particular mission was called Dancing Goat 2. And I learned that through my research and talking with people. The goat represents sacrifice. And the Army puts these things together like 8 to 9 months in advance because the Army has to account for every penny. So when they put missions together, these are all in plan. So they pretty much know who's going to be where, and they get their who, where, what, where, when, why, and how all lined up. So they had their training, and I remember my son telling me many months before, he called me, and he called his dad and his family, sisters, and said, you're not going to like what I got to tell you, but I'm going over there, and we just knew Aaron was going to do what he wanted to do anyway, but none of us had a really good feeling about it, despite the fact that ETT 2-7 really didn't have any problems at all when they were over there. So why should Aaron's team be any different? Well, it was. It was. And the thing is, you don't tell a Marine, send them into a place on foot and without the weaponry to defend themselves, because they're going to fight to their death one way or another, whether they use a stone or whatever they use. But so that's when Aaron was with Dakota Meyer and some of the Marines that he died with. They were at an outpost. They had Camp Joyce, which was the forwarding base, the headquarters. And then they had these little posts, and Aaron was at Camp Monte, which was a ways away from Joyce. And I know that, three of Aaron's guys, Aaron and two others, were with him when they were killed, 3 out of the 4. And then there was Dakota Meyer, for the Marine Medal of Honor recipient. And they went on several runs. You know, they had security. They had to check in Donbara, neighboring towns and villages. And they had a few close calls. And 2 days before Aaron died, he missed an explosive that they said blew up an Afghan soldier, and just missed he and Leighton. And then 2 days later, they were killed.
Okay,
So,
Susan,
when they were over there.
Susan,
Yeah.
let me stop you for a moment. First of all, I want to apologize to every Marine, and I made a silly error on my part. I referenced Dakota Meyer as a former U.S. Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine, and I apologize from the depths of my heart for referencing any Marine as a former Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine. That's number one. Number two, you had mentioned something that kind of slipped by as well. That I think it's important. You had mentioned that he was a part of this training team, the ETT 2-8, the embedded team over there. You had mentioned something about the lack of armaments that he had. Were they well equipped, or were they limited, rationed in terms of their supplies?
They were limited. Well, they had been told that, and they went. Let me get through. They went through the the voting in the presidential election. Okay, that was, I believe, around the 21st or so of August.
Okay.
And then they had a key leader engagement to go to. And they had gone to part 1, but part 2, they were trying to win over, the elders in the town, because Ganjgal, the elders said that they didn't want to have anything to do with the Taliban. Well, it was on the Pakistan border, for God's sake,
Susan,
and,
if I may ask,
I want to.
How were they trying to win? How were they trying to win them over? When you say they were trying to win them over, what were they doing?
They would bring in money for information.
Mm-hmm.
They had to bring in money, and when they sat down at their tea drinking, Aaron would gain they would talk and gain information, intel, what was going on in the town. And I wanted to let your listeners know, remind them, and those that are familiar with history will remember, but the Russians were over there in 1979 to 1989 for 10 years. And the Russians could not infiltrate the mountains, the foothills. That was a solid place. But yet, the night my son was, the morning that my son was attacked and ambushed with his group of ETT trainers, there were, this was noted, 100 to 150 Taliban that were well mounted in the foothills. So this means they would have had to have weapons and assault weapons put there in advance, because these mountains were very steep too, and this was an arsenal. I mean, you know, our men were not getting any help from 10th Mountain Division, from those officers in charge, and the guys that were the sergeants and all the good guys, they wanted to go in and help, and they were being told, no way. But I'll get to that, and you'll understand once I tell you. So they left early in the morning to head out on their mission, and their mission was supposed to take place on the 7th of September, and it was pushed to the 8th of September. And when they went out, they were left the Border Patrol. There was more Border Patrol people that were supposed to be with them, and that didn't happen. And there was intel coming in at the last minute, supposedly, but yet people at the FOB knew what was going on at Camp Joyce. They knew. There was a couple of officers monitoring the intel. You could see the bad guys, because in Dakota Meyer's book, Into the Fire, he talks about the war room, how it was laid out, that the people that were sitting at these, computer sites and these great big, huge, like you're watching a movie, you could see where the bad guys, the good guys, and everything that was going on, because they used drones and satellites. And yet, stuff was coming in from special operations, from these Marines, telling them that there were people coming into the foothills. There were groups of them coming in. But the people that were in the FOB were not relaying all the information to our Marines. And so our Marines went on with their mission, and they had to park their vehicles and walk in more to the valley because of the trucks, and they had to leave a lot of the weapons and only carry what they could carry in. So a lot of things were left in the truck. Well, it was about 5:30 in the morning by the time they started walking into the village of Ganj Gal, and it was during Ramadan. And, Ramadan is the holy time. The Afghans fast. They don't eat. But yet it looked like there was a camp that was set up for cooking food for a lot of people. And there was just a lot of loose ends laying around. And because of the time coming in at dark at 5:30, the lights started to flicker, which was a signal they're here. And the first shots started to go off. And Aaron and Lieutenant Johnson and Gunnery Sergeant Johnson and Corpsman Layton all grouped together, and the four of them went one way, and everybody else was running for cover and trying to figure out what was going on. And it was clearly a setup at that point. And then they started using their radios and calling for help. And Aaron had told the Afghan interpreter, tell your people that, we should have air support here within 15 minutes because, he was calling for air support. And that was usually the drill, as it was in Vietnam and every war. Within 10 to 15 minutes, choppers come and they drop the smoke, but it didn't happen. and there were still no choppers. And so then it started getting more intense with the firing. And our men were calling for artillery support. Well, you would think that the officers in charge of the 10th Mountain, of the FOB, Joyce, from 10th Mountain, which is known for their artillery. They brag about how wonderful their artillery division is and that they're the best at it, and usually they are. They're great guys. They're great soldiers. But these particular 2-3 had a different agenda. And so what happened was when our Marines were calling for help, they were getting 20 questions. Like, why are you, who's on your ETT team? Why aren't you doing this? What's going on? And laughing in the background. And just unethical, gut-wrenching, stupid stuff that doesn't even have any bearing. And these are my son and his men were wondering, why the heck are you asking us these questions? We're at war here, and you can see what's going on. You're sitting in front of satellites. Send in the ammunition that we need, the artillery support, and get us the air support. So here you have 1 or 2 sergeants in that room watching what's going on, knowing this is not proper protocol of their senior officer to do this. They start calling Asadabad and Jalalabad and neighboring bases to call for reinforcement, for help. And so then, I don't know, probably 15 minutes after that, I don't know if it was like 45 minutes to an hour into it, they were sending off from an inorganic unit, you would call it. They were sending 2 choppers, and the 2 choppers were just within about 4 to 5 minutes of rescuing my son and the other 3 soldiers. And at this point, it would have been an hour and 15 minutes before they were killed. So they would have had live people. And then somebody from a higher echelon called the FOB and said, clear the air, nobody's going to rescue anybody or land anywhere. Abort the mission. And so...
Wow. So let me get this straight. You've got an operation taking place. You've got a team of men, including your son, going into. And by the way, we're going to get into this right after here shortly about the layout of this area, this valley, and how this was all set up. Because there are so many intricate points to this that people have to understand that this was planned out. But the fact is, you've got the forward operating base. You reference it as a FOB. That's an acronym for Forward Operating Base, I believe, from the 10th Mountain Division. That would be from, I believe, Fort Drum. But this would be...
Yes.
Okay. All right. So what you said so far is these young men, these men, including your son, went into this area.
They were delivering, had to leave their vehicles and a lot of their arms that they could not carry
because of the terrain.
The terrain, right? They were carrying what they needed into a nearby village, and signs from the other side that lights were flickering, and the shooting started where they were ambushed. And during the ambush, the call for help went out, and a lot of people in our interactive chat room, said, "Wow, this sounds like Benghazi, where help was ordered, and they were left."
Well, what, Doug? I honestly believe that had my son had the justice with this case, and had I had the proper lights and the voices would have jumped in when I was out there talking to congressmen and senators and governors and spending thousands of dollars sending out my 500-page documents in a disc to everybody that I thought should be knowing what's going on. Be like the Benghazi mother sending out a report of what she has to all of the people nowadays that are more aware. Well, I was doing this then, 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, actually. And I only got like 25 replies back out of all the senators, congressmen, and governors. And it is exactly what Benghazi is. They use the same exact weapons. It's the same MOS. When there's an MOS, and you know, because you're an investigator, it's like a set of fingerprints. So the people that's my question. It feels and it smells like the same kind of groups of people that took down our Navy SEALs, a couple of years after Aaron's death. Had we got the justice for Aaron, maybe the SEALs and maybe Benghazi never would have happened. So this is so inside. This is people that know everything and watch everything, that these are planned attacks. And the sad part about it is, and again, and I apologize because I know that 10th Mountain has some really great warriors, and I know that most of those men they live valorously and honorably and would never do anything to another human being that wasn't just, especially a brother in arms. It's one thing against an enemy, but not against your brother in arms. But there were a couple rats there, and these younger guys had to witness this, and thank God for them. I just applaud them and thank God for them that they did the right thing and got the attention of those that were in the other camps to come and help out.
But Susan, but if I'm understanding this correctly, and I've looked at this over and over and over again, and I know Jonathan Landay, an embedded journalist, had written about this, and if I'm understanding this though, what we have here, and you mentioned it yourself, is like a like a smaller version of Benghazi. If there was an ambassador, perhaps, if there was an ambassador, perhaps in Ganjgal, this would have made front page news on every newspaper in every city in the world, but it didn't. And right. But what just to be clear for people to understand, this mission. This mission that your son was involved in, where he went into this valley, this horseshoe-shaped, I guess would be the best way to describe it. There's one way in, one way out, if you will. Once you're in, the only way to get in, if they allow you to get out, or the only way to get out, if they would allow you to, is just one way, and if they don't allow you to, you got to shoot your way out. And so your son went in. Or air support, correct. And this is what people really should understand, and we're going to cover this a little bit in greater detail, because the devil is in the details in this. Your son, his team went in there to, as you say, to interact with to interact with the locals there, and I was surprised. Call me naive, but when I first heard about this, I was surprised that, hey, you got Marines taking in briefcases full of cash to these mullahs.
Yeah.
I mean, color me naive, because I am, or at least I was years ago. But now, okay. But okay. So they go in, and by the way, this was, as you said, this was supposed to take place the day before. It didn't, for reasons that we'll get into later. But it took place on the following day, on the 8th of September. Local time and day. It was early morning, dark out. Yeah, signals like, oh gosh, this is a setup. Yeah, they get into the thick of it, and I'm kind of racing forward here, and we can back up, but I'm racing forward. They get into a this massive firefight where Aaron is like, and everyone, and we're going to talk about the others too, because there's a huge surprise coming here with regard to your story as well. But the bottom line is they ran out of ammunition, and I mean they were had to throw rocks at the people who were attacking them. I mean, and they're begging for air support. They're begging for air support, and think of Benghazi. Begging for air support, help us, help us, help us, and no one is coming to help them. And not only is no one coming to help them, not only that, the people at the forward operating base says, we're not sending the enemy. We're not sending anybody. That's kind of where we're at,
We're
right?
out of artillery. You're 10th Mountain Division, Artillery Division, and you're out of artillery? You're out of mortars? They're out in the country. Well, we can't shoot over there. You got to be kidding me. And I have to tell you that this is at the same exact time that Baraj Matal, the Battle of Baraj Matal was going on. Baraj Matal started about 10 days earlier before my son got there, or a week earlier, and went on to about 2 weeks later after Aaron's death. And they bragged about shooting out into the city. And it's the same groups, and it's the same officers, the very same officers that were in charge of Baraj Matal bragging, yes, with coalition forces.
I mean, look, as a father, or as a husband, or even as just a human being, I'm deeply offended. When they asked for assistance, when they asked for air cover, there were drones flying over there, right? There were drones flying over. They witnessed what was going on. There was somebody in a control room, most likely at the forwarding operating base, watching in real time what the heck was going on, watching the slaughter of people. And there's another part of this too that we're going to get into as to the wounds of your son. But they're watching this in real time. Doesn't this sound like Benghazi light, perhaps? But okay. I'm sorry, I'm getting all riled up because I'm just thinking of all the things with your son and what I know of him, and I just get really emotional about this because as an American I'm deeply offended. But okay.
It's heartbreaking, Doug, and you have every right. My family still grieves, Aaron's dad, I just saw him a couple of weeks ago and he's so broken up over it, and so are my daughters, so's my mother, So I guess my search for justice, they can't do what I do. I do it for them. They're just as involved. They ask me and they support me so I can do this. So when I say me, it's not just me. I have the love of my family behind me, but they are working regular jobs and raising their families and doing what they can, but they're behind me all the way for all Americans. So when I say me, I always know it's my family and I. It's not just me. And we're out there fighting for everybody that's out there in the trenches because we don't want you to feel the pain we hold. There's such a void in Aaron's sacred space. He was such a light in this life. He truly was. Even at 13 years old, he looked out for old people and animals and kids, and he's not alone because it's the best of our American legacy, and now you can see connect the dots because the few before him and all those that have come after him, the same pattern and the same MOS, like Benghazi, including the Navy SEALs.
Exactly. And Susan, we're at the top of the hour right now. We're going to take a break right now, a 2-minute break. this will give you a chance to grab yourself a cup of tea or water, whatever you need. But when we come back from the break, Sue, what I'd like you to do is talk about the circumstances of this particular ambush, because who went in, the Aaron's, the others that went in with Aaron, what happened, and how you were told that Aaron was, how Aaron was killed, and then then as we get into this last hour, you're going to reveal some very interesting information about what has happened to you because of your position on this. And folks, this is where it really starts to get good. But we had to lay the foundation before we get into this to let you know who Aaron was, and what, who Susan is, her family, and the entire, all the periphery of the situation. Now we're getting into the heart of the matter, and when we do, there will be some surprises. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this, the Ides of March, the 15th day of March, 2013. I'm Doug Hagmann. With me in studio is my son, Joe Hagmann. Together, we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Our home base is HomelandSecurityUS.com. And you know what, folks? Susan, our guest, Susan Price, she's got a website just starting out. It's a shell of a website, but bookmark it because it's going to be filled with a lot of information. It's called priceforjustice.com, priceforjustice.com. Not much there except a great picture of her son and also the memorial service as well. We're going to be right back after these messages. Stay with us.
Hi, folks. Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the Internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eileen Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com. Or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
If you are stumped, you don't know what kind of gift to give to a friend or a loved one, I'm telling you, you must go to 4physics.com. That's the numeral 4, PHYSICS.com. This is your one-stop shopping palace. That's the only way I can put it. I could spend easily an hour on this website. Innovative, fun, educational. There are games, books, weather instruments, unique time-telling devices, jewelry, optical devices, laboratory equipment. Let me give you an example. We all know we can tell time with a sundial. You've seen those advertised. Did you know that you could tell time by the stars? At 4physics.com, you can buy a horologium nocturnum. This was a navigational device used in the 15th century by navigators at night to tell time by the stars. It's beautifully crafted in the shape of a pendant made of bronze and pewter or gold and silver. Absolutely a stunning gift. I would be proud to give it to anyone. You must go to 4physics.com. Even if you're not stumped, that's 4physics. That's the numeral 4, PHYSICS.com. It's your one-stop one-stop shopping palace. Any problems that you have, I don't know what to get Grandpa, I don't know what to get my loved one, that's unique, you will find it at 4physics.com. Please take my word.
Doug Hagmann. One guy that doesn't need a bullhorn to get your attention.
You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
And welcome back, folks, listeners from coast to coast worldwide to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. This hour is sponsored by Granlund Firearms and a Freeze Dry Guy. Granlund Firearms, that's GranlundFirearms.com, and Freeze Dry Guy. I want to mention, too, our special guest tonight is Susan Price, the mother of Aaron Kennefic, a fallen Marine. Susan Price is a Gold Star mother, and this is a recounting of the ambush at Ganjgal, Afghanistan, on September 8th, 2009. And I want to thank, publicly thank my source behind the scenes, shall I say, because it's interesting when we talk. My source is giving me a lot of information, and Susan, let me just run this by you because we've talked about this, but he said it pretty concisely. He said this, and he's very, very plugged into the military-industrial spy apparatus, if you will. He said this earlier and then most recently. He says, a couple of things. First of all, this entire mission, the way you set this up in the beginning about your son and about him standing up to authority and saying, not wanting to go along with what was wrong. I mean, if something didn't make sense, that's one thing. But if something not only didn't make sense, but appeared to perhaps be contrary to the whole spirit of America, what we're doing, and seeing through the compartmentalization to the extent that, hey, having to ask, not only is what I'm doing legal, but is what I'm doing for the good of the country, or am I actually doing the work of the enemy? This entire mission, based on what you've said and the documents, and I've seen the documentation you've amassed, and you've sent it to me, and I've got it, and you've got it, and others have it. This entire mission, from beginning to end, did not make sense. This was a mission that these men essentially were. This was designed for failure. This entire mission was not business as usual, and this is something people have to understand. This was not business as usual. Please understand that, folks. This mission did not make sense. Not from start to finish, it didn't make sense. There was a different purpose here for this mission. And the likely purpose, based on the totality of evidence, in part, at the very least, if not the only part, but part of that would be to get rid of a problem. And the problem happened to be Aaron's conscience, Aaron's heart, Aaron's soul, Aaron himself. Okay, now, dare I say this? I think after a review of the evidence, yes. Now, having said that, it is well known in military that when you send a group like this out to perform a specific mission, and this is SOP, and my source had said this, there's always an expectation of support to be provided when and as necessary. All they had to do was give a specific signal, and that's all they'll say. And it's well known within the military, or within the intelligence part of the military, and and the spy world, if you will. All they had to do is call for support using this particular sign, and they would have got support. Well, they did this based on the AR-15-6, I believe, or AR-15-6. Is that the
Yeah.
the investigation, the report of investigation that I looked at? They did call for support in this fashion, and just like Benghazi, they were denied. See, they were not just not given support. Somebody higher up in the chain had to deny the support from them, and that's an
Right.
important distinction. So knowing that, and again, that's an extremely important distinction. And at this time, when they're under fire, how long did this firefight last? To the point where Aaron and others
About,
were out of bullets, out of ammo.
well, it started at 5:30 in the morning, and they fought. They thought the choppers were coming. They were dead by 7:30 in the morning, about 2 hours, but it still went on till about 4 in the afternoon.
Okay.
And what happened was, and I'm going to have all this up on my webpage. By the end of the weekend, it will all be up there, all the details, everything. People will be able to go on, click on, see the video of the terrain, hear the story. Everything will be on there by Sunday. I'm working on that. And so the firefight went on. I think they didn't get all kinds of support for hours later, but I will tell you this first of all. They were dead by 7:30, so by 8:10, 8:15 in the morning, about 45 minutes later, somebody responsible walks into the fob at Joyce. So was that to make sure they were dead first? And I have it in writing from an article from from one of the, because the Marine Corps Times did a lot of articles for 3 years on this. And there's still controversy, actually. We have Congressman Duncan Hunter is fighting for the truth and justice of this case. And I actually sent him a copy of the over 500 redacted page because the Department of Defense was delaying giving the congressman a copy of the investigation report for months. So he's fighting for Will Swenson. Captain Will Swenson was the second man to be put up for Medal of Honor. There were 2 Medal of Honor recipients, Dakota Meyer from the Marine Corps and Captain Will Swenson from the Army, because Captain Will Swenson and Kenneth Westbrook, who was an Army sergeant of 22 years, those 2 men worked very closely with the ETT Embedded Training Team mentors. In fact, they lived in a castle on the Pakistan border, the Border Patrol Police. So these men were heroes in every sense of the word. And the 5th man to die was shot that day and died a month later was Kenneth Westbrook. That's a story in and of itself.
Well, let's touch on that. Kenneth Westbrook was with your son, or in the same on the same mission as your son, correct?
Correct, and he was
Okay.
Army, and like I said, he worked with Captain Swenson, who was
Okay.
trying to get his Medal of Honor. Yeah.
All right. Now he was wounded at this gun battle, correct? Captain
Yes,
Swenson.
yes.
Okay.
He wanted to
All
go in
right.
and help Dakota retrieve the bodies.
No. Let's kind of take just a really quick route into this, because I think that this is important for people to understand, to put in perspective. What happened to this gentleman?
Well, this story really is for his widow to tell, and that's another story. But what I can tell you is that this man who was such an icon and ready to retire 2 months later, and he told his wife that he had a bad feeling about Afghanistan, And he was American Indian and 22-year hero. And he was shot that day in the throat. And he was getting better he was in Walter Reed Hospital for the month, getting better. You know, and it's also in the investigation report. They keep talking about Captain Swenson and Kenneth Westbrook, that they needed to go to Walter Hospital and talk to Kenneth Westbrook. And he was rehabbing, and they took him off all the equipment they had him on. He was getting better. And then a sinister turn of events happened, which I'll leave it on that note that contributed to his death.
So he's no longer with us.
Fair to say he died. He's no longer with us, and that for his widow to tell that story.
I can appreciate
that. Was 2 months away from retiring from the military and everything he's ever seen and done. And like I said, Captain Swenson was kept from getting his Medal of Honor twice. General Scaparrotti sat on the paperwork, and it got lost, and then it was missing at U.S. Central Command, and the people that I know there said, Susan, nothing gets lost here in regards to that. That's like the goose that laid the golden egg. We handled that paperwork. So it never was turned in the first place. The third time, General Allen had to sign for it, and it sat on President Obama's desk, and it never emerged. And it's a 3-year period of time that you have to have it signed legally and into the computer so that this honorable man that fought tooth and nail, if it weren't for Will Swenson, there'd be no Dakota. They'd all be dead. Every one of them. And, but how gracious this man was. Captain Swenson was in the audience for Dakota's Medal of Honor. However, our families were not. We were not invited. None of us. And that's just really strange because families, the Gold Star families are always invited. And when I watched this young man that received the Medal of Honor this past couple months ago, I was so happy for him. But something struck me odd. They had his little son running around, touching and getting into everything, and the president was laughing, saying, oh, he took bites out of different apples. And I'm thinking, well, my family wasn't all invited, and me, and what about the other fallen families that are like our family? None of us. We were kept from going.
And I think that's important.
You know,
not to sound, I'm not saying that you sound like, gee whiz, they didn't include us. I think it's important because this is a tactic to keep you separate and keep you away from the others, and also, and that's important for people. That's a very important distinction for people to realize. This battle, and how many lives were lost in addition to Aaron at this battle? Not including
there would have been healing.
Right. I mean, how many people were killed at this? How many coalition or U.S. soldiers were killed at this?
At the battle?
Yes.
Well, there was 3 Marines, a Navy corpsman, an Army guy, our 5th guy, Ken Westbrook, 12 Afghan soldiers, and there was a lot of injured people. And another thing, too, that's very important to mention, this is an ambush. This was one of the first questions I asked at Dover. I asked the mortuary guy, if this was an ambush of 100 to 150 Taliban, how many times was my son shot?
And the answer?
He said, well, ma'am, I said, was it 17, 20? Tell me, I can take it. I'm a veteran. And he said, no, ma'am, 1 time. It was a shot in the right cheekbone that severed his spinal cord. And then I knew. And the same with the others. they were shot once. I think one guy was shot maybe twice, but they were all executed. Yet, the other men had multiple wounds and bleeding and blood all over the place. Everything was shot up. Everybody else was riddled. But yet the 4 men that were down in the ditch were shot once. And the corpsman was shot a couple times. He had been administering first aid to First Sergeant, or to Mike Johnson, Lieutenant, and it goes against the Geneva Convention in war, even in war, that you don't shoot someone that's administering medical attention. So that's when I knew there was something going on with our rights and Constitution and all that, because I'm pretty good with history and following rules and laws, and I thought, the laws need to be changed because there's something very sinister here. And there's a lot of sinisters here.
And not to, there is. I've looked at this, and a lot of things don't add up. The accounts, for example, of the aftermath, the investigation, and in fact, in September, as recently as September of last year, there was a McClatchy journalist, and I believe it was Jonathan Landay. Correct me if I'm wrong. Interviewed several Afghan soldiers from the Afghan National Army, and they were present there. And the soldiers actually disputed a lot of the accounts of the Marines' battle, or the official investigative report, stating that the Taliban did not charge necessarily Meyer's vehicle, for example, and that it was more of a well, in reading this, and I'll just give you the short version here. It was more of a an execution of the people there, of the soldiers of the five U.S. soldiers killed, as opposed to a gun battle. And that your report of one fatal shot, certainly suggests that it was an execution as opposed to a gun battle. Now, I understand that, things happen, and all battles don't look the same. But when you've got men pinned down in a trench, and then you've got single shots, in very deadly, fatal places, it takes on a different flavor, if you will, or a different, a totally different thing. So, as my source said from the beginning, this entire mission didn't make sense from start to finish. The entire mission was not necessarily what it appeared to be. There was a different purpose for this that resulted in the death of your son. And again, it goes back to perhaps the questioning of what the purpose was when they called for support and received. Not only didn't they receive any, they were denied it. It was taken off the table. So you've got, folks, the reason that this is so important is, much like Benghazi, Americans are not getting any answers about Benghazi. What answers have we gotten? None. And what answers has this mother of this brave Marine gotten? None. What answers have the other widows and parents of the deceased, of the executed Marines and military people have at this ambush? None. And there are no answers forthcoming. So in a sense, we can't get answers. I mean, not in a sense. Practically, realistically, the American public, can't get any straight answers from this government about anything, including from Benghazi to Ganjgal and everything else. And it's absolutely incredible that and by the way, the other half of this story, and once again, we're kind of encapsulating this, the other half of this story is what happens when you begin to ask the questions. And see, this is the important part. What happens when you begin to... Susan, what happened when you started asking questions about this?
Well, it actually started before I started asking questions. It was kind of strange because I thought there's something going on, because right after my son told the one general off years ago, in like 2006 time frame, I started receiving these weird pop-ups, like prepared to be absconded. And I thought, who is threatening me? And I can't see them. Abscond is a military word, and I'm military, former military. My father, my son, and most of my friends are either police officers, cops, or military. That's my world. And then I would have these pop-ups showing, a plane on fire with a caption that said, "Mom, help Mom." And another one that had a bomb on a figure that said, "See, Mom, you can see right through me," with a list of DNA sites. And I thought, this is ridiculous. And then I went into another email one day, and Doug, I'm pretty intuitive. That's my God-given gift that I have. And I was doing some marketing for some doctors, doing up my report. And this one particular site that I had, I didn't have documents in there because it was a brand new site I set up, and something kept nagging me to look at my documents. And it's kind of that feeling you get when you get a feeling there's a cop up ahead and you better slow down a bit, kind of like that.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I went into my documents because I wasn't going to argue with myself. And lo and behold, something was put in my documents. I was shocked. I had to call Gmail and have them take it out. There was a series of documents. It looked, the best I can describe it, looks like Indonesian woman and wearing and I don't want to sound ignorant for anybody out there, but she had the red dot on her forehead.
Okay.
And was wearing a sari, but I can't read Farsi. And I was on my brother's computer, actually, just on my email site on his computer. So it had nothing to do with the computer, everything to do with my email site, which my son would send to me, email both sites. So somebody that was connected with my son, militarily wise, got a hold of my site, and somebody put something in my documents. Somehow, some way, they transferred data into my documents. I don't know how it got there, but there was the stuff written in Farsi, and then there was another packet of stuff, and I almost died when I saw this. This other packet was, and it was satanic. And I saw that first page. I didn't want to look any further, and I called Gmail and got a hold of them to take the stuff out of my account. It was, how they have a man on the cross? Well, this had the man on the cross with the face of the goat on the cross.
All right. So was this before or after? Was this before your son was killed?
That's before the stuff was there. And that started a couple of years before. And the same with me being the victim of a drive-by shooting. That was exactly 1 year before.
Yeah,
and then 2 days before.
Perhaps
2
you might
days
want to.
Before my son.
You mentioned that drive-by shooting in a rather cavalier manner, as if that happens all the time. What happened there? You were.
I'm sorry. I just. You know what? I've become immune to this because there have been so many things that I'm in my fight or flight. And I guess I have PTSD because I've been living through this, trying to rationalize what is going on.
Well, tell us about the drive-by shooting.
I was the victim of a drive-by shooting. I was on my way to work on my birthday. 4 years ago. And I was the victim. Thank God I'm okay. But that's a story in and of itself, Doug, because
but somebody actually
fired.
Somebody fired a shot at you, hit your vehicle. You're okay. Did they catch the man?
I never caught them, but the gentleman that lived next door to me that fixed my window and the doctor I worked for whose daughter took the pictures, the bullet holes, well, they broke in her car 4 days later, stole her camera, and the guy that fixed my vehicle that was up, he'd be up all night. He lived in the townhouse next to me, and he would see who would come and go all the time at my place because the townhomes were together. 2 days after he fixed the window on my car, he was coming home from the corner on his motorcycle, and somebody pulled out in the middle of the street, and he got in front of his motorcycle, put the brakes on, and took off. So he ended up in the hospital for a week and almost died.
Right. Okay.
That kept him out of the way. I don't know what their intentions were, but that same day I had a bad feeling not to go home, and my brother was living here, so I went and stayed with him for a week. It just so happened that God protected me. And then, not that it's cavalier, but there's just been so many things. I've been followed and monitored, and my phone played with, and my bank account, and I can't have a smartphone. My friends will joke with me about, well, just text and talk. I can't. My phone doesn't do that, people. I have to be as simple as I can because I don't have that luxury because of who my son was.
Okay, at this point, and Susan, I think it's probably relevant to point this out, and I think that it's necessary to point this out, especially to the listening ears of certain agencies. Your son was extremely plugged into things, and he knew things, and I'll say this, what Susan didn't say. Is that prior in the lead up to this ambush, this setup, if you will, in the lead up to this, Aaron would say certain things or not say certain things to Susan, his mother, and there was this unspoken basic ritual that took place or that occurred where you, Susan, had kind of a bad feeling about things, and he was trying to convey to you that things are not exactly right. There's things that are amiss here, and I believe that you had related to me on a couple of occasions. He had contacted you before the ambush and kind of said stuff like, things that would suggest perhaps that he knew something that you didn't, and he knew something was amiss, and he was just kind of wanting to make sure that the loose ends were tied up. Is that an accurate assessment?
Oh, yeah. There were so many times, Doug, that it's, we could be driving down the street, and he was doing 45 miles an hour looking through his rearview mirror, and before you knew it, he's doing 90 miles an hour like someone's chasing him or following him.
Okay.
And then he would say, Mom, if I put this glass of water here, it's for a reason. So when Aaron died, he had his whole book put together of all the bills he owed. And he had received one of his reports, and I say one report, when he was in Japan, because he had to meet with somebody. I was told that he would get a phone call between 2 and 2:30 in the morning, like 2 to 3 times a week toward the end. The last year before he went over there, and he had to leave. And, he couldn't have bailed out Marines that were in trouble in Japan that many times. That doesn't happen 3 times a week. But that's the intel, the secret intel part. So he found out a few days before he left that he wasn't coming back and what they were really over there for. And he conveyed to a friend of his, and he was crying to this friend. And this friend never had, in all the years he or she knew of Aaron, never knew Aaron to fall apart like this. And this person had to go pick Aaron up and drive him home. And he conveyed to his friend that I don't think I'm coming back, and I know the real reason that we're there. But by then it was too late. He had to go, and he had to go through what he had to go through.
Did he expand on did he expand on that, the real reason that we're there?
Because there's the code. Again, he wouldn't violate that code. He never did, and that's why I didn't understand, why people following me and trying to listen to my phone calls and to put apps on my telephone to keep me from calling out. I could receive a call and a text, but I couldn't text or call back. And messing with my bank card and just, Social Security numbers of the dead are out there.
Right.
Online.
Now, Susan, I mean, we've covered a lot of ground, and we've got less than a half hour left of the program, and I just want to throw out the twist here of something, and I think that this will kind of tie things together. People would look at you and say, well, why would, just for asking questions, why in the world would you be harassed to the extent you've been harassed? You confided in me, and I'll just say flat out that, Aaron was not unintelligent. He was very intelligent, and he knew things to the extent that he knew things weren't right. He knew that things were not right. Very wrong. And he left a piece of evidence, and that's all we're going to say. He left a piece of evidence with his mom. And I think the mom kind of, Susan, you found it perhaps by accident, or you didn't really?
He handed me this particular item and said, "Here you go, Mom, take this." And I said, "But that's yours." And he said, "Mom, take it." And I looked at him and I said, "Okay, I get it." And so I took it, and let's say that I have it in a very safe place with people that I know, and then other people they know, and I have a lot of things that a lot of people know. It's the same information times 10 or 20. So this particular thing is really, really, really big. And
so it would make sense for the military or the intelligence agencies to look for it, especially if that bit of evidence, that thing, that item or a series of items or package or whatever it would be, that you have was secreted elsewhere away from you and in a very secure location. It would make sense for them to want to get that back, because whatever is there could be incriminating to them, their mission, we'll say, the true nature of their mission. And as a result, this is why the harassment after the fact, that is.
Doug, and this is the thing. Like I said, I was half awake and half The Walking Dead when Aaron was serving, because half awake, I knew half of the things. But then when he died and I started putting two and two together, it's like, oh my God, it's not that I was half awake. It's just that Aaron never told me things. And then I started noticing patterns emerge. And then I thought, why are people following me, watching me, doing this to me? I'm an innocent American, just being an American. And living in that fight or flight, like you said, I'm a victim of a drive-by and I act casual about it. It's not that it's casual. Nothing can trump losing a child. Nothing trumps that. So the 3.5 years I've had to grieve hard, I put the other thing out of my mind, because this is But that gave me a new purpose in life now, because through all the unanswered questions, I have a huge account of questions that I want answered. So if nobody can tell me them, I go looking. And like you said, there's nothing more dangerous than a mother bear. And
That's right.
Sometimes knowledge And information is more deadlier than a weapon, I got to tell you.
Indeed, it is, and I just want to say for the listeners, Susan, you've related a number of stories to me that have checked out about neighbors seeing overflights of a drone for crying out loud.
Oh yes, that too. Oh yeah.
And harassment of other military. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, the latest are the drone and the Black Hawk helicopters that have been over my place and at friends' houses where I'm been at a couple friends, and we would hear a drone like it's about to drop a weapon on you, and they're like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" And I'm standing there, and I tell them because I don't really go around a lot of people that don't understand, and my friends do, and they're like, you're going to be with us. We're going to, if anything happens, we'll go down together because we're not going to let you do that alone. And they wouldn't believe it if they didn't see it in my company. But yeah, 3 Black Hawk helicopters 2 months ago were flying over my house for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're not talking about just an overflight. We're talking about a message being sent to you, and people might think, oh, this woman is off her rocker. Well, I'll tell you what. You talk to the neighbors who witnessed this. You talk to the people in the very area, the gated community where she lives, and I'll tell you, everyone can't be crazy. Everyone can't be nuts.
Yeah, well,
and
my friends said they wish I was crazy because then they could say, well, she's crazy, but knowing me, and, I mean, I guess we're all a little crazy for living on this earth, but for the most part, I'm pretty normal. I'm probably too serious at times, Well, but, yeah, that's, yeah. Oh, yeah, and then I was driving down the street 2 weeks ago, and a guy that was behind me was getting too close to my vehicle, and I thought, why was somebody, we keep a half a car distance at least. And I looked through my rear view mirror, and this guy's looking at me, and he gets into the position like he's got a gun and he's going to shoot me.
Yeah,
and I wasn't doing anything. He was behind me, and I had a car in front of me. I couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah, this is not your ordinary aggressive driver going down at rush hour type thing. This is an act of intimidation. After you told me about that and my research and investigation on this, I got to tell you, it's not your normal everyday happenstance or occurrence. So just to kind of recap in a way, just for our listeners, especially those who tuned in a little bit late, your son Aaron was involved in the Ganjgal ambush. He was one of 5 American military personnel that were ambushed, and that was on September 8th of 2009. And of course, his history was the fact that he was an operational asset for the Central Intelligence Agency, having served at CENTCOM and for specific generals and all over the country, doing missions everywhere. And at some point in time, just to recap, at some point in time, he realized that perhaps, or he was asking the question, I guess I would say, is what he was doing, is what I'm doing, is it legal? Is it for the good of the country, or am I actually part of an operation that's already been captured? And it's kind of like, and then they have you say his breakdown, if you will, or I shouldn't say breakdown, but his emotional plea to another person, saying, I know why we're there. I know why we are there. And then to be summarily, these are my words, summarily executed in this ambush, received no help. And then then the investigation afterwards, in the aftermath, for everything to be covered up, for you not to be able to get any answers. Where in America, how in America, how can this happen to a mother who sends her son out in America? How can this happen?
And not only how can it happen, how can it be tolerated that a stand-down order be given, and the result of that stand-down order leads to the death of her son, Hero,
and 4 others.
Right. And yet, we don't hear, about it. We wouldn't know about it unless you didn't come in contact with Miss Price. Really, it's not something that, like you said, no ambassador was killed, so we don't have congressional hearings and people barking for answers every single day. The way we see that they try to do with Benghazi.
And Joel, you bring up an important point because there are other Susan Prices out there. There are other Gold Star mothers out there. There are other mothers out there wanting answers, crying themselves to sleep at night, and just saying, my goodness, this is America. All I want is the truth, and not getting the truth. And Susan, you're at the tip of the spear for the search for the truth. You're like a Mrs. Tillman, if there is one. It's that. And we are all in that position. Are we not all going to be, perhaps, like Aaron, led to slaughter if we don't get these answers? If we don't get everything that we're asking right now?
We are. And I believe that that's why he left little trails of evidence. And you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Because you've seen certain things. And I couldn't make that up, could I? Certain reports and certain pictures and certain things. He painted a good picture in plain hide and sight without violating the code. He knew his mother would put it together. And I got to tell you, you and Joe are correct that all of us Americans will be part of it if we don't wake up and band together and get our church leaders together to talk about what's going on and get leaders in the community to fight back. Because let me tell you, one of the big, huge pieces of evidence I've uncovered through this, which led me to the bigger picture, and Aaron's death was for the greater good of humanity, that God, I believe, used him as a part because he knew that I'd be awake to finding these things out. And one of the really bad officers who supposedly was reprimanded. There were 3 officers involved, and they say 2 of them were reprimanded. I got to tell you, and I'm really aggravated and heartbroken over this. This guy that was the most derelict and behind the scenes is tied in with the general. And this bad man, I don't even know if he has a conscience, is involved with other groups that are involved with the government. And if I found it, anybody could find it. It's out there. And that just shows you that there's something going on, masterminded, behind the scenes. Because he was promoted and allowed to receive a pension. He's getting a pension every month for the death of 5 men on his hands. God only knows how many through other missions. And then he's working, infiltrating with certain groups of people, and they look like they're humanitarian. But let me tell you, when you're working with Department of Agriculture and this department and that department, it's not for nothing good. It's for forces that have a hidden agenda. And this guy's out there.
Yeah.
So was this guy part of the Benghazi cover-up, or the Navy SEALs, or the slaughtering of other Special Forces Marines that were killed over there after Aaron? It's just...
Yeah, and you have to ask the question.
I can't bring my son back, Doug. Yeah, I can't bring Aaron back, but this guy's running around out there, and we could get him. Everybody knows who he is. Everybody. And, and he could be involved with being at your front door one day. I mean, that's how close this stuff is now. And that's why I've taken on the position to come out, if you will, to tell more about it, because now it's getting dangerous where it's affecting our families here in the United States. And now is the time for all of us to become aware and be on guard and protect yourselves. And this is why the government wants to disarm us and take our Second Amendment away from us.
Yeah, Ms.
They
Price,
don't want you to be protected when they come.
I agree with you 100% about the guns. I do have a question. You alluded to this earlier. Your son was handpicked to be at the RNC. He was the head of the Special Command in Germany. You said he was outstanding. He flourished at everything he did. He was a leader, and yet this mission he was sent on, I don't want to say was below his pay grade, because I know he would serve at any mission asked of him. But just to reiterate for the people who could come in late, he was pretty much taken off of his post to go do what he was doing, correct?
Well, that's what I wanted to jump in here. When he called to tell me he was going over, he said he volunteered to go over there. But yet, the person that I know told me he was getting calls a year ahead of time before he went over there at 2:30 in the morning, 3 times a week. So that tells me that, knowing he was CIA, that they told him, you're going to put in to volunteer to go over there. Now, they have ways of doing this. And so that's why I believe that he, and then through that, it was orchestrated and set him up, because the Army has to plan these events at least 8 or 9 months in advance. And you got to turn in a roster. Doug, you have the roster.
I do,
of every
yes.
man that was on Aaron's mission, yes. And
actually,
you have the book.
For the people, or for the agencies listening, I have a copy of it. The originals are in a safe location off premise.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
All right. That way I don't.
Yeah.
That way my office doesn't get tossed.
Well, you have one of the 20 copies, because seriously, there's like 20 people that have this information.
Right. Right.
And a lot of other stuff. And then you have a copy of the booklet that Aaron, of another deceased member, that Aaron, he put that book with his because he wanted to tell us about the guy. And in that book, there was something that was written in there. And then it didn't make too much sense. Now it makes all the sense in the world.
You know what?
Say what was in there?
Yes, go ahead. Please.
What was written in there was DHS and ICE.
Think about that, folks, for a moment. Think about that for a moment, folks.
Yeah.
Department of Homeland Security and Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
3.5 years ago. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And I suppose this would be a good time to mention, we didn't get into this, but this is a part. There's just so much. This is so big to comprehend. Think about this, folks. There's also a Masonic angle to this, and a very, very occult, very satanic angle to this. And we're not even going to go there tonight, but I just want to alert you to
That's
this.
the most disturbing. The satanic element of this.
I'm going to tell you something. If again, I saw it with my own eyes. So okay,
Well, Doug, that's like the material that was put into my documents back in 2006, 2007. How many years ago was that? That was 2 years before Aaron died. 5 years ago. Somebody was putting that into my documents to scare me. And I had to call Gmail to have them take it out. I couldn't print it because the printer on my brother's computer was down. But it was so scary and disturbing. I thought, who's threatening me? And who's doing this? At first, it scared me. Then I got ticked off, to be honest with you, because I go looking for answers all the time.
Well, I want to say this, Susan. You are a trooper. You've recounted the story, and I think every element that you provided, every element of information that you provided, even in the methodical manner even if someone might say, well, it was pretty protracted for what you covered. Every element, folks, that Susan talked about, we had talked about before, and every element has its own piece of its own level of importance, shall we say, that we talked about. Because what this interview today is doing is setting the stage for this massive, aggressive demand for answers. And Susan Price is not in this fight alone. There are other mothers and wives and people like her. She is, and by the way, for those listening, she does not. She has played it very, very intelligent. The evidence, documentation, supporting documentation, has been properly handled. So, if you would happen to harass Ms. Price, it's not going to do you any good. Let's just say it that way, because it's been this show has been years in the making. This moment has been years in the making. We want to do things intelligent to the point where we have things in places where if something would happen, believe me, if something would happen, trust me on this, folks. If something would happen, I guarantee you that it would be a case of mutual assured destruction. Because what we're going to do is
Doug, and my son never called me General Moms for no reason at all. And he would tell me, Mom, you are a very dangerous woman. You look so unassuming as a mom, but the way you think is just like a general. And that's what brings the enemy down to their knees, because you know how to think. And I said, well, now I can't take all that credit, because that's the gift I inherited from my father. And my father was a Marine, too. And my father brought us up with common sense, taught us how to fight, and to fight intelligently. So, yes, I have an army of people, and I'm very well protected. And I know the right folks, too. And this is America, and the bad people are not going to win. Sorry, but you're not. My son, what hurts me the most is my son knew all this, and I just wonder how long he carried that burden. And he's at peace with the Lord. That's where I'll go, and that's where my loved ones will go when it's our time. And, that's a blessing to know, because our souls will live on forever. But the bad people, not so much.
No,
you
that's
can't
true.
take money with you. Yeah.
You can't take any earthly possessions with you. And I got to tell you, Susan, I admire you because you have the tenacity. I've never seen someone more. I don't know what it is. It's this 24/7 push for the truth, and I think you're doing every American a great service. And I think it's time that we all get behind Susan Price, and everyone likes Susan Price, and those people who are in her position as well. Let's gather together. We need answers. We deserve answers. This woman, for her son's life, for her son's service, for her service, her father's service, we need answers. We don't need excuses. We don't need half answers. We don't need expunged or the redacted executive summaries of reports. We need answers. And you know what? If what we're doing, and this was said to me again by a person I dearly respect, if what we're doing over in Afghanistan, Iraq, or what we're doing in any given operation, if that doesn't make sense to, if you can't explain that to your mom or your grandma or your father or any American, let's say serving on a jury, let's say there was a jury of moms, grandmas, fathers, aunts, uncles, whatever, and if you can't explain what we're doing over there with pride and with reasonableness, if it doesn't sound reasonable, then should we be doing it at all? And I think that's what it comes down to. Because go ahead.
I wanted to thank you, because you are the watchdog patriot, I am just so honored to have you as my friend and to know you and your son and the people that you know and have influence with, and thank you for being a true American patriot. And I'm honored to be fighting and working side by side with you and sharing those thoughts and ideas. And on that, my one last thing I'm going to tell you real quick is
90 seconds.
They were getting ready for the election, the presidential elections. I asked, why are our Marines being dumbed down for the position like this? You know, they're fighting machines. And they said, well, their mission is to go in and count and find the Afghan soldiers, the boys that can come into the army.
60 seconds.
I said, for God's sake, they can do that when these people go to vote. They can sign in. So that doesn't make sense. So, you know, that's another contrived lie, just like the stuff they try to feed us with Benghazi, when they tried to put Susan Rice on there. And people know who Susan Rice is and why Obama wanted to put her in that position in the first place. So people, do your homework, Google while you can.
That's right,
While
Mrs. Price.
We're at the end of the show. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to thank you so much, Ms. Price, for coming on and telling your story and sharing your story with all of our listeners tonight. It is sad but inspiring at the level of courage you show for your son, and I want to thank you so much.
The foundation.
10 seconds.
The foundation for her website. No problem. Price for Justice, website just getting started, priceforjustice.com. Susan, God bless you. Listeners, thank you for tuning in tonight. God bless you. See you next week.
Thank you so much. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Bye.